Hi, Geoff Lawton here, and this is the Discover Permaculture podcast. And today our subject is permaculture versus glyphosate. Contentious subject. And with me today, I have our core team, Ben Missimer from Mississippi, USA. We have Eric Sider from Sacramento, California, and young Sam Parker Davis in Zaytuna Farm, right here with me in Australia, but in another room. Right. So, the problem. Can we recall the first time you realized something was wrong with conventional agriculture? Over to you, Ben, as the oldest team member apart from myself.
Hmm. Well, as a prepper, I would say studying up on trying to find source quality food, just kind of being overly aware in a lot of vague sectors of things not quite right, and just that was pretty much it. My exposure to being hyper aware of all the all the vulnerabilities of our food system, but also the quality, the nutrient density of it, and the fact that we spray poisons all over it like it's cool was something that definitely pushed me in the direction of permaculture.
All right. Eric, where did you come in as first time you realized something was wrong with conventional agriculture?
Probably when I took my permaculture design course. I mean, I definitely knew there was something wrong with the world prior to that, but I didn't really have the specifics of how the food system was working and particularly the insidiousness of industrial agriculture.
Ooh. And young Parker Davis, Sam, where did you realize there was something wrong with our food system?
Well, I guess I grew up with an education that the food system was corrupt and wrong, and I hadn't seen it until I started working in the field. And then I started meeting people with tumors all over them. I started meeting with people with bits cut out of them. I met banana farmers. I met this guy, this banana farmer that just had this massive skin graft that went all across his face like that, and it's huge. Like he had like how crabs have one bigger arm and one smaller arm. He had this huge arm, this one arm that was just gigantic from all the tumors he had in his arm, and that was his spray arm. That was his arm that he had in contact with poison all the time. And I think that's was a significant indication of like, yep, yeah, no, this is real. This isn't just like something that my parents talked about. This isn't just something that the organic movement is harping on about. This is seriously causing problems in the world.
Okay, well, I'm going to predate all of you guys because I had this weird feeling when I was about 5 years old, which was about 1959, 1960. And we used to have in England, I grew up in England, and 1959 was a troubled period anyway, because it was a Cuban Missile Crisis. But I used to enjoy watching farming programs on television, and chemicals were coming in pretty strong. This actually predates glyphosate, but there was always an alternative program every now and again about organic farming when they were shoveling shit around and moving organic matter about and recycling animal waste and things on a farm. And I always just thought, that's right. Like, that's kind of normal. And then the chemical alternative was like not normal. I just thought, this is wrong. There's something, and it goes right back for me. I remember looking at this, saying, I inherently thought this is very, very wrong that they're not using natural stuff. They're using unnatural stuff. So it kind of haunted me since so I was really small. And it was from television, watching probably black and white television in those days. But anyway, we've had the opportunity to see that things are wrong. So, how did glyphosate become so widely used in agriculture? What do you reckon? Let's go, Ben. Let's see what you reckon. Why do we use it so widely?
Um, just laziness and it's I think it's like conditioning. They have a product to sell and they want to convince everybody that it's a good thing, and part of that pipeline of getting people to go along and think it's a good idea is really founded in the educational system.
Right.
You know, whether it's the pharmaceutical industry or the petrochemical industry or one of those veins that stem out from those industries, it's it could be a toxic byproduct of something that they make, and they think like, hey, we could do this with that, or we'll just feed it to the people. It's that level of mentality that they operate on. But large scale industrial agriculture, they just want GPS driven giant tractors on autopilot, and they got advanced robotics and drones spraying crap all over the place. I mean, I guess that's good for the guy. Doesn't have to be out there with the pump sprayer now, but bottom line, it's still getting in our food and soils and water, so it's a no bueno.
Yeah, we actually had more extreme chemicals originally, DDT, and there's a herbicide out there that's worse than and in a toxic level than glyphosate. In paraquat has some glyphosate, I think, in it, but we kind of reverse chemicals back into like life manipulated hormone base. So we took it from this extreme chemical, which is deadly, like extremely dangerous and banned. But then we came to this insidious use where it's like aimed back into living cells. We can't see it, obviously, but now we know the consequences. What do you reckon, Eric? Where's it come in? So why is it so widely used? Laziness? Convenience? Ben reckons?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely convenience. I would say humans are like water. We take the path of least resistance, and then it's just psychopathy, the psychopaths who profit off of it and know that it's toxic and are spraying it in a environment that they live in. So they're killing themselves and their children, but they do it anyway. So I don't know how to explain it other than that they're psychopaths. So, and unfortunately, they have most of the power in the world at the moment.
Sam, what do you see it? Where's your angle on this?
I'll give a quick little history on chemical agriculture because it informs the way I think. So this fella wrote this book called Dirt, The Erosion of Civilizations, and it documents how different civilizations destroyed themselves because of their relationship to soil. And there's this part where it explains the birth of chemical-based agriculture, of the modern age of agriculture, and how it was bat poo mines that got us started. So we got started on mining nutrient, and then we were able to synthesize that in labs, and then naturally it turned into how do we kill plants we don't want, which was with warfare. Like we started using warfare chemicals on our land, and I think it is a lot to do with our societal mentalities. I mean, we've based society a lot around conquering land, killing people and things, and trying to have some sort of control over a landscape. And I think it's informed the way we grow food greatly, is that it's an exercise in death rather than exercise in life. Because the product that it produces is not about producing nutrient-dense food or high-quality life or high-quality food. It's about producing things that fund money. It creates money using tools that kill things. Tools of death.
Yeah, anything with an "-icide" at the end of it is not something you want to be involved with.
No.
Well, it's a cost of chemical convenience, I think. I remember when glyphosate was still owned by Monsanto, they had the patent. And I wasn't seeing too much of it on aid projects I was working on in poor developing countries. Then suddenly the patent lapsed. You could get cheap Chinese glyphosate, and I'm sure cheap glyphosate made anywhere. And I then saw part-time farmers emerge in developing countries. So I'm still dealing with part-time farmers. And I remember Thailand, all of a sudden, when farmers who lived in the city, 2 or 3 hours away from where they buy land, they could reduce their labor cost immediately by just spraying cheap herbicide, glyphosate as the main one. And I thought, I could see it coming. I thought, wow, here we are. There's part-time farmers now everywhere in the world, and they're not thinkers about what's happening It's convenience, quick money. I'm gonna take all the weeds out of the mango plantation or the durian or whatever plantation, and that reduces my work costs because it's cheaper than workers and very, very effective at killing everything that they don't want to see, but they haven't had time to think about and work a relationship with, to design other ways using life to combat life and things like that. So I'd like to talk about what are some of the most dangerous, damaging effects you've seen from the use of glyphosate or other herbicides. I mean, we see here in our macadamia plantations around me in Australia, we see a lot of erosion caused by bare soil, straight up and down planting, volcanic soft soils, easily eroded when they're so easily made bare, as no option to use elements that can manage the soil, overpower the weeds with convenience that we can create with living systems. But no, it's just a quick chemical fix.
Well, I don't. It's not a personal experience; it's an observation. But what's played out in India, Vandana Shiva tells a story on the ground quite well of the farmers getting caught in this cycle of having to spray, but they're also on the hook to buy GMO Roundup Ready specific crops, and it's all they bleed them dry to a point where they can't afford it, and the farmers are drinking these chemicals just to commit suicide as like a final statement of whatever. But it's not a good thing. And gene patenting and making terminator genes so you can't regrow seeds again, and genetically modifying plants so that they can take whatever dose internally in their plant structure and not like melt, is things that's transferred over to us. So societally, it's not a good thing. On top of it all, just beyond the body and the water and the soil, it's just like economically, it's devastating.
So it's a trap. It's a trap that can end up in debt, that can end up with suicide in developing countries. I mean, the slightly earlier or more potent herbicides like paraquat, you only need a sip and it will kill you. There's no antidote. I think with glyphosate, you've got to take a bit of a cupful or a mugful, and it will kill you. Does that make it slightly better? It's more insidious because a lot of people don't realize these chemicals. The new chemicals are based in hormones, and it's estrogen, it's female hormone. You don't kill males, you kill females, you kill the breeders. So we're actually, a byproduct of this is we're in an estrogen drench. So it's greatly affecting sexuality in all animals in the environment. It doesn't stay just with us, it's everything. So Eric, you're in Sacramento, in amongst the Californian kind of heavy industry of the San Joaquin Valley, the largest concentrated agriculture in the world. So a funny thing about health is that whether you get the richest farmers in any country, no matter how wealthy or poor, where you have the richest farmers in a district, you have the highest concentration of cancers per capita. Where you have the highest concentration of farmers per capita, you have the highest concentration of cancers per capita. And no one kind of relates to that. In Australia, it's northeast Tasmania. It's something you can track anywhere, and we can look at the cancer rate increase since herbicides like glyphosate first released 1974, and then the development of genetically modified, genetically engineered crops, and the famous one, glyphosate resistant genetically engineered seed in 1996, and the use of glyphosate increased 15 times globally. What are we at now, Sam? We're about 800,000 tons a year.
800,000. at 100,000 tons.
The average American farm nearly uses a kilo a hectare a year, every year. Eric, how is that meltdown, that flow down of air coming down in winter, probably dropping out of the San Joaquin straight through Sacramento where you are, and underneath the Golden Gate Bridge? It's actually squeezed right under the Golden Gate Bridge, the downflow of air from the San Joaquin Valley, which produces more of the world's tomatoes in concentration than anywhere, and mostly all of America's tomatoes, for tomato sauce mostly. What is that? I mean, what's the feeling? Do you know about this stuff in Sacramento, San Francisco?
I mean, there's definitely people know about it, but unfortunately, it's still, if you bring it back to suburban urban, I mean, people are still buying Roundup off the shelf and spraying it in their yards. And, inexplicably, I guess you could say people still trust the government because people can sell it, so it must be safe, which, I think is part of the problem. Is we need to remove that fantasy from our lives if we're going to move on. The government is not interested in your health and well-being. And then as far as the Central Valley, I mean, what percentage of the food in the U.S. is grown there? And it's essentially a chemical fog, the whole Central Valley at some point. I mean, the poisons go vaporized. So you're, the mist coming off the ocean, and if you're driving through the Central Valley at the wrong time of day, you're essentially in a cloud of toxicity.
Wow.
And I think, there's also just the misunderstanding that we can take this thing that's obviously dangerous, we're going to spray it on our food, but somehow the food itself is going to be fine. It's just the mental gymnastics to make that okay is also part of the issue.
Well, the half-life, when it's half as strong, these chemical toxins are measured by half-life. There's been lots of law cases about this, and prosecutions about falsifying the half-life. But even when you look online now, it can say right down, it's 1 day to 364 days. There's numbers of figures out there about the half-life. It's kind of false information or bad information or not accurate information. But then you also have countries around the world. There are many countries that have banned glyphosate. Some places it's banned in the urban space, in town, but not in the countryside. Or other places it's been completely banned, but then it gets revoked and brought back in. Like there's some threat to the government or maybe some corruption. We don't know. There's some very strange figures about it being banned and then brought back in. And other places it's banned and some places it's open. There's a real mixed bag here, as if there's something that really works this out. What's your perspective, Sam? I mean, you've got a younger view and vision and more of a sort of way of looking at this from a well-informed point of view, being born in the computer era so much.
So I would say with the situation that a lot of countries have found themselves in, we're looking at some very, very powerful companies that have a lot of clout in some of the most powerful countries in the world. And their effect on smaller governments or less powerful countries when they weigh in on them is extreme, really extreme. And we see a real trend of glyphosate in particular being banned and then no longer being banned, being revoked. We have court cases, multiple court cases where Monsanto has had to pay out because of tumors that glyphosate has caused in people. So we have some serious links, some proven links. It's not just conjecture because of the court cases that have been won. There was a man who worked in schools. He worked on schools and he was spraying glyphosate on the school. He was the groundskeeper. And he developed tumors all through his body, and he took Monsanto to court partly to pay for his medical bills, but also because of corruption. And that's what it is in the end. It's these large companies playing with people's lives, and then us trusting them. We trust them, and that's a devastating thing as humanity, that we trust these people that are just taking total advantage of us, putting us in a situation where we have a decreasing quality of life. And it's twofold, I see, insofar as our relationship. We have a psychological problem in that we are disconnecting so profoundly to the way that nature works because we have such simple fixes like, okay, so death, we kill these things and then we want these things to live. We don't have an integrated understanding of how the natural world works. If we identify a plant we don't work, it's from another country, it's a Chinese plant in Australia, we must hate it, it must be hated, and therefore exterminated. We must commit genocide on the plants with poisons. And that is just such a simplified view of how the world works. So I think it's helped us become more ignorant, become a bit more stupid, and that contributes to our application of it. And then also cancer just goes up and up and up. Like you were saying, all the wealthy farmers being in Tasmania, Australia has the highest cancer rate per capita in the world. Australia has it. And people say that's because of melanomas. But you look at where the highest cancer rates in Australia are per capita, and it's Tasmania. Tasmania is the coldest part of Australia, so people have less sun exposure, and they have the shortest days out of anywhere in Australia, with the lowest light out of anywhere in Australia when it's the longest days. So they have the least possibility of getting skin cancer. So you can't say that it's skin cancer that's causing Australia to be the highest cancer rate in the world. And if it's Tasmania, what's going on in Tasmania to cause cancer? And that's where the wealthiest farmland is in all of Australia. So there's a pretty clear link.
And endocrine disruption is also a complicated variation of affecting our hormonal structure and our immunity system. So it gets kind of insidious, you can't track it, but we're kind of well, we're scared and we're well watched over, we're okay, that makes us brave and free. But like, it isn't, we're not being watched over. And we should be getting bored with being scared. We shouldn't be scared, and we're pretty sure we're not being watched over. So Ben, in what's happening? Are we brave and free, or are we watched over and scared, or where are we? And what have you got to put into this?
All the above. It's scary stuff to like acknowledge, and like if you know your food and water is poisoned, that's kind of an alarming epiphany to have. But we shouldn't shy away from acknowledging the realities of this world, so that we can evade, adapt, and overcome. And it's not that we're stupid, it's just we're ignorant, but that's by design, and it's institutionalized. We're shown great marketing, advertising, and demonstrated usage, and like, this is the way to do it. And these companies have infiltrated not only our governments, and lobbied them, but also our educational institutions at the highest levels. And it's the same thing with doctors. It's all scripted. It's like, what's your symptom? This, and this. Okay, take 2 of these and 1 of those. Same thing with plants. And I'll give you a really good example. I'm staring at it right now. If you have a question, the great authority that people are directed to go seek counsel from is your local extension agent office. And that is a remote station from the state university. They put these outposts everywhere as a resource for people to come and learn about growing food and how to control invasive species and how to identify this and that. And there's a long list of things on the kill list for my area, but just one crazy thing to point out, and kind of point to the problem as the solution is, for instance, mulberries. It's listed as a non-native, but it's a white mulberry. And what they recommend doing is you want to take 4 pounds of glyphosate and the appropriate surfactant as a foliar spray, along with Garlon 3A, Garlon 3,4, and arsenic, and spray that bastard down. But Geoff, what could we do with white mulberries? Please enlighten us.
But
Go ahead.
white mulberries are a great dried berry. Apart from the fact they're completely fireproof, right? So they'll save a house in a bushfire. There's a great shot of that in Australia after the big fires. One mulberry saved a house in a black landscape. One mulberry, one perfectly safe house, and the whole rest of the landscape's charcoal. That was an amazing photograph. And there's multiple things we can do. We can actually eat the leaves of young mulberries like dolmades. They wrap them up around food parcels.
As an animal fodder source.
And they're a great forage plant. Animals love them. So multiple uses for mulberry, but you're gonna kill that thing because it's too easy for people to supply themselves with food or something. I mean,
and it's non-native.
It's
non-native, so it's got to go.
Right.
Can't have it.
But most of the food you're eating is not native. I mean, all the origins just about. I mean, a large part, it comes evenly divided from all the continents except Australia. Australia has produced nothing except the macadamia nut, and we haven't had an ice age here. So we at least have 1/5 of the world's potential food sitting here undomesticated. That's another story, domesticating it to be a little bit better. That's not genetic engineering. That's more like ladies going shopping, because it usually is the ladies who do selection in natural systems when we're developing them. So when we develop systems, let's get out of this nightmare of negativity here, guys. In permaculture, the solution, the problem is the solution, is a permaculture saying. Permaculture is the solution in this case, but we have a very serious problem, and it's everywhere globally. So after everything we've just discussed, and we could keep going, but let's stop the depression a minute. The damage, the dependency. What does permaculture offer the world right now? And we need it quick. So, Eric, in California, what do you need to do? You're getting out there on the street anyway. You've got a garden just gone in with a food forest, 25,000 cars a day going past, and you've got lots of volunteers helping you. It's not enough, but we need people to know there are options. What can we do so we don't have to use herbicide and we can get ourselves some clean food?
Well, we need local food systems as fast as possible, because the question, can permaculture scale? It can, but not in an industrial fashion. Big, giant, centralized systems are always problematic. Permaculture can scale, but as many decentralized, independent groupings. So we need to go down as small as possible, back to a village, neighborhood, village bioregion is the scale we're talking about. And it's all there for us if we want to participate in our abundance, or we want to keep participating in our destruction. That's the fork in the road we're at. But if we don't all get involved in supporting local food systems, we don't all have to be farmers, but we all have to support the people growing our food, then that's the only solution, because industrial agriculture is a failed path. It's obvious. And like my friend Billy Bond at the Permaculture Pimpcast says, we need to get loose or get lost.
Well, I point you up here first, because Sam and I are at Zaytuna Farm in a little village called the Shannon, 20 minutes from a 30,000 population town, but 3 hours from a city. So we're out in the bush, really, compared to you. And Ben's down there in Mississippi with the alligators and the swamps and things like that. And he's a couple of hours from a big city too, New Orleans. Is that right, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, as far as big cities go, New Orleans probably the closest. There's a couple smaller ones that are 45 minutes north and south, but
we're kind of still we've made our exit a little bit, and we're talking to the population here. We're talking to the people from a bit of an escape zone. But Eric, you're in Sacramento, that just about completely links through to San Francisco, right?
Oh yeah, it's about a 2-hour drive on a normal day to get to San Francisco from here.
And it's just about suburbs all the way.
Yeah, I mean, when you pass through the Delta, it gets a bit marshy and farmy and interesting, but it's basically just urban sprawl.
You're a
all
big
around
place.
360 degrees.
Near you in Village Homes Davis, which you're more or less connected to through urban sprawl, you've got one of the iconic eco villages on the planet. Just about predates permaculture. I've done my pilgrimage there, and I was jaw dropped. So you have incredible urban examples, classically really close to you, and you're the one team member here who's is very much in amongst the large population density. So how does that? I mean, shouldn't that be influencing our development? That sort of Village Homes, Davis, California style. I mean, it's a very old system now, and it's. I made a video about it. Food Forest Suburb. I couldn't film for 2 hours when I arrived there. The day, or I filmed for 2 days, but the first day I arrived, I couldn't film for 2 hours. I was just my jaw was on the ground. I didn't think it was that good. I didn't think it was that well developed. That was that mature. I've never walked around a place that I've had to scrape fruit off my shoes every hour because there was so much surplus fruit lying on the ground. I mean, mature, and every fruit that I tasted, and I taste a lot of fruit, in front of cameras especially, and every fruit was gorgeous. Every fruit I wanted, every single one I wanted to take a second fruit down and chew it off. It was amazing. It's built on swales, it's built on water harvesting, it's built on nutrient cycling, really, and nutrient dilution. The suburb itself is a benefit to the whole system. The suburb creates it by design, a food abundance. It's anybody talk about that? Does anybody say, well, we should be doing more of that? Wouldn't that be a good idea? And there's no herbicide used there. There's nothing. There's no chemicals used in Village Homes, Davis, California. None. What are they? Is that common knowledge? What's happening?
I don't know how common it is, but any time you explain it to people, the light bulb goes off and they're like, oh yeah, we should do that. But then, well, that's the question. Why do we keep banging our heads against the wall doing the same stupid things, expecting a different result? And it's obviously there's a lot of momentum and in the machine to keep it rolling. And I think there's still the naive expectation that, government's going to fix it or some white knight's going to come in and fix it. And it ain't happening. We fix it ourselves or, we step on the gas on the bus off the cliff. So it's like, I think we've always said demonstration is the only thing that inspires people into action. So the more little systems we can get up and running, and also just realizing you don't need permission to save the world. Just go bloody do it, right?
Well, you need good educators to inspire people, and we're creating more of those all the time. But and demonstrations are great, but some kind of involvement. What do I do? Where do I go? Where do I meet people who've got experience? And you set up a permaculture group, and we've been trying to set up a startup kit for permaculture groups worldwide. Well, we've got a system that's worked. I've got a permaculture group that's 35 years old here in Australia, one of my proudest achievements. Sam, give us your speak on this. Like, what is it we need to do? Because we have the answers. What does a functioning permaculture system give back to the land, to the farmer, and to the wider community? That chemicals can't. They just can't. Right? They're the opposite. So what do we tell us? What do we do? Give us the young view here, Sam. Come on.
So going off what you were saying before,
the young old view
about the
from
problem
Sam.
being the solution. Going off what you said before about the problem being the solution, I think there is a lot of problems identified in chemical agriculture that unfortunately aren't leveraged to be more beneficial as the problem that they are. So one being soil life. We often create all sorts of sprays for soil life. We have nematode problems, or we have fungal problems, so we create all sorts of sprays for them. We have problems with plants growing too vigorously, too much carbon, too much soil being built. And we often don't realize that those things are the things we need to live good quality, healthy lives. We need healthy soil life. We need an abundance of it. We need an incredible amount of carbon to be built for us to replace the soils we're losing and we've lost. And this needs us to realize that these are the comprehensive solutions. They are these solutions. We need to partner with these plants that we hate, that we want to exterminate. We need to partner with these microscopic organisms that we think are destroying things so that we can have a good integrated life. It's about building ourselves, about growing our understanding of the natural world, growing our minds and our relationships so that we can have fulfilling lives, fulfilling, healthy lives where we don't get chronic, horrible problems with chronic inflammation as we get older or even younger. It's becoming younger and younger and younger. All sorts of horrible things happening to people because of chemical exposure. And it is so solvable, so solvable, so easily solvable. And to engage, I mean, it's a permaculture design course. It's one way to do it. Get your property designed by a good designer, get it done, and get involved. Well, this is a complete cultural shift and complete mentality shift that is for the better. It's going to help everyone.
Transformational shift, definitely. Ben, you've got something. What do you got to give us?
Well, I just say on the factor of scale and window of opportunity and to achieve rapid change, it's permaculture has been going on for decades, and people have gone off in their communities and they've made their demonstration sites, and there's thousands of like really killer, just ancient and modern day examples of how this is done. That box is checked. It's cool. We should all be engaged individually for sure, beyond your porch, into your yard, out into your homestead, and perhaps erecting little eco villages, but on like a medium scale, a village scale, like Geoff had just mentioned. We already have that template. And in a time when they're trying to move us off the land and into smart cities and dense populations, there's a desire for people to go back to the land and re-engage with nature. And we should encourage them to do that, but it needs to be done intelligently with city planners. We need to model our suburbs in a way like the villages and make it a useful, helpful part of the overall system. But as far as scaling up, it's not cool, it's not good, it's not conducive to go headbutting the local educational institutions, local government, and state government. We really need to petition and form strong local movements to, if they're not going to champion it, then they need to step down, and you need to build support bases within your local communities to take over your local governments. So instead of, as an example, going around with giant tanker trucks spraying glyphosate along every single roadside, under every power line, on top of our food, they would be doing something intelligent like rounding up road crews to chop and drop and shred material to then bring back to a local community asset on a municipal scale and deliver primo compost and like encourage that type of activity, not just in local governance, but bring that into the classrooms and start tying in all of these resources. And it's not going to be at the hands of one individual or 20 people or 50 people in an eco village. It's going to be hundreds of people that fulfill very critical roles that meet that check every single checkbox of what it is that we need to source locally. And that architecture needs to be, that blueprint needs to be thrown onto the table of our local governance, and we need to dance accordingly, and we need to dance quickly.
Well, we can have designer compost crops instead of weeds, and we can design the weeds we need to make natural fertilizer resources. And scaling up, I don't think is needed whatsoever. I mean, we need to scale down and spread out. What we're doing is we're scaling up and we're minimizing and concentrating our food supply. It's quite the opposite move. We need to scale down to appropriate size and spread out to as many locations as possible. Then we get a fair deal on health and nutrition. And Eric, before we move into our summary, you have a perfect problem is the solution. What is the perfect problem as a solution?
Well, I was mentioning about the Delta before, where it reminded me of I was at a plant nursery that had water plants for sale, and someone saw water hyacinth and remarked that it's destroying the Delta. And I just chuckled to myself because, as we know, the plant is a symptom. It's not the problem, right? The problem is all the runoff from all the agriculture and industry into the Delta is creating this huge bloom of nutrient, and the water hyacinth is actually trying to solve the problem by sucking it all up. And so there's water buffalo is one of the premier milks in the world, and water buffalo love to eat water hyacinth. So, or you could, I mean, obviously you can't solve the problem until you cut off the supply of nutrient running into the water, but you could actually have multiple industries based on cleaning up the problem from the farmers. You got a dairy from your water buffalo, you got crazy compost and biomass from the water hyacinth. I mean, it's endless, but it's not a singular checkbox. It's not mindless simplicity. So I think that's what scares people, Permaculture is inherently complicated but it's interesting, and it's like, what the hell else you want to do? It's more fun to be involved in complicated, interesting life growing systems than melting your brain in front of a screen,
Mindless system.
If we keep simplifying the world, we get to a point, I think, and we're seeing that now. I think all of our problems come from oversimplification of things. Our incredible diversity that we once had kept things intact. And as we've gotten more and more and more reductive in our ideas, pointing towards technology, large business, singular ownership of different things, things have become less diverse, more singular, and less enjoyable. Our economies have gone through collapse because of it, and it's just less fun. It's just everything is just less fun. The more and more simple we've made everything, and living on a permaculture farm, living diverse lifestyles. No one wants to do the same thing all the time. I'm sure most people listening to this work the same job every day, and it's boring as shit. It's horrible. I imagine.
Yeah.
And your life goes through in black and white. It's just your days just blend into each other because they're the same thing over and over and over again. You're doing the same thing every day, and time feels like it's going fast. But then you stop doing that and you start doing something diverse, like going on a holiday where you did lots of different things, experienced lots of different things, and that was rich and enjoyable and fun. And why can't that be life? Why can't we make our incomes by doing lots of different things? Why can't we contribute to society in rich and meaningful ways by doing different things, by doing multiple different things that we enjoy?
Yeah, well, that's permaculture. It's definitely rich and abundant, and life goes on in a splendid, non-boring way with lots and lots of diverse memories. And we have all these interesting solutions. Water hyacinth, I've come across on Lake Victoria and found that you could compost it all on its own because it's trapping so many nutrients. It's the last stage. Water plants, floating water plants, are often used as an obvious enemy because they are obvious to people. They're sitting on top of water where people don't expect plants to proliferate, but they're final filters, as you say. The relationship we have with nature is literally like a lifetime relationship with another person. It gets richer when it's going well, and it gets boring when it isn't. And you separate more and more, or you join more and more in life experience, and your whole life engagement becomes richer. You understand floating water plants, you understand weeds, you understand the problems you have with a little bit of imbalance here and there, and you do a little bit of work and it sorts itself out. Often more abundantly than you expect, with more beautiful conclusions, which create a better ecosystem, a cleaner landscape. The rivers run clean, there's less flood and drought, there's more life. Everything can be more abundant in life. So in conclusion, the critical need is to rethink our reliance on chemical solutions in agriculture, to empower the potential of permaculture design in creating sustainable, healthy communities. And here's a call to action. Before I call to action, I want to say one thing here, right? I'll start off with the youngest members here. Sam has been teaching with me for nearly 2 weeks. He's a wonderful teacher. He's an expression of the youth coming through who can express themselves in a beautiful way. And I really appreciate his teaching ability, his consulting ability. He's taught himself so many skills. And we need more Sams out there. Eric's been working with me over 20 years on projects worldwide. He's one of the most dogged people I've ever met. He'll never give up until he's got a perfectly fine finish. And I've always appreciated Eric's engagement with him. It's 100% guaranteed. Ben, ex-student of mine. I think they're all been a sort of ex-student of mine. But Ben has been working with me for 8 years or so on some of the best tools permaculture ever have to use. We all use Ben's mapping tools. Ben's engagement in mapping has been monumental in the ability to change what we potentially can do with technology and get it done real fast. And there just needs to be more appreciation of people like these guys I work with. That's why they're on this panel. So here's a call to action for listeners to explore and implement permaculture principles in their lives. People, get involved. It's been great bringing you this horrible subject with this beautiful solution. And we'll see you all next time.